Okay, we've got a quote from Loon Point, and we want to know what most effectively illustrates the claim. So out of the answer choices, which are all quotes, what supports or is an example of the claim? Loon Point is a 1912 poem by Amy Lowell. In the poem, which presents a nighttime scene of a body of water, Lowell describes an element of nature as an active participant in the experience, writing, "Though the water, the moon writes her legends in light on the smooth wet sand. Okay? So is that illustrating the claim? The claim here is it presents a nighttime scene, but it describes an element of nature as an active participant in the experience. So nature has to be an active participant in the experience, okay? Through the water, the moon writes her legends in light on the smooth west sand. So, okay. Softly the water ripples against the canoe's curving side. Is that describing an element? So we need an element of nature, right? And it has to be an active participant in the experience. That's just rippling on the side of a canoe. I don't think that's really an experience. Or like the snow white petals, which drop from an overblown rose. That showing nature as an active participant in the experience? Not clear. But the moon in her wayward beauty is ever and always the same. So that an active participant? Though the water, the moon writes, here's the moon, or the water and the moon writing. They're doing something. They're active, right? The others, they're not active. Well, the water ripples is active, but that just says against the canoe's side. The experience is through the water and the moon. It's the nighttime scene. Water rippling against the canoe's curving side says nothing about night experience. That's just not there, right? Whereas in A, it is there, okay? That's an action, but nothing about the night experience, which drop from nothing here about a night experience. Dropping is the action, but no night experience. So, but the moon in her wayward beauty is ever and always the same. No real action here, no participating in actively. That's not right. A is going to be the answer. Which quotation from a scholar describing Catlett's work would best support the student's claim? So one of the answers, a quote, will support the claim of the student. The student's claim is right here. Let's take a look. Accomplished printmaker and sculptor used her art to explore the Black experience in the United States. In a paper for an art history class, a student claims that Catlett had a particular talent for unifying various artistic traditions and styles. So the claim is she pulled together different styles of art. So which quote shows that? In Mother and Child, a sculptor of two black figures, Catlett used an ancient indigenous sculpting technique and combined the visual aesthetic of modern Mexican muralists with that of German. Whoa, those are examples of different artistic traditions and styles in one piece of work. So that would definitely be evidence to support the claim. A looks pretty good. Let's just check B, C, and D. In her collage New Generation, Catlett overlaid fabric on the canvas to represent the clothing of the father. Doesn't say anything about different styles and traditions here. So no different traditions. It's just different things they did. That's not the same. C, created in 68, Catlett's sculpture Black Unity is stylized, first sculpted from mahogany, measuring 2 feet across, remains an important piece, is received new and well. Okay, just because it's popular does not answer the question. Nothing here says anything about traditions and different styles of work here. Again, one series of Catlett's prints made by the artist using the linoleum cut method depicts several notable African-American women, including Harriet Tubman. Okay, these are the same culture, styles, and I assume traditions as the artist. She's a black woman, so these are famous black women this does not show a variety of cultures and traditions in her art. So it doesn't really support the question. The best answer here is A. These are examples of using various different traditions and styles, including not only her own style, but Mexican, indigenous art, German art, etc. Okay, if true, which statement would directly support the student's claim? A student examining, so let's make sure we find the claim probably at the end here, and we're going to figure out, given the background, we're going to think about these questions. We've got to do a little more pondering on the text. We got to be a little more proactive with it and figure out what would support that, what would be evidence of that. Okay, so the student is examining a long, challenging poem that was initially published in a quarterly journal without explanatory notes, okay, then later republished in a standalone volume containing only that poem and explanatory notes written by the poet. The student asserts that the explanatory notes were included in the republication primarily as a marketing device to help sell the standalone volume. So the claim is here the notes were just in there to help sell it, right? Not for marketing, not for artistic or fundamental purposes, just to help sell it. So what evidence would support that? Well, we probably want to see something that the republication was driven by the desire to make money, to sell more. So the text of the poem as published in the quarterly journal is not identical to the text of the poem published in the standalone volume. So does that tell us that it's primarily marketing? I don't think so. Many critics believe the poet's explanatory notes remove certain ambiguities of the poem and make it less interesting as a result. So this is kind of alluding to the idea that the notes kind of take away your interpretation of the poem. And therefore that's, not necessarily good. But if it's not necessarily good, does that mean they're trying to make money and market from it? Not exactly a valid conclusion. So I don't think it's B. C, the publishers of the standalone volume requested the explanatory notes from the poet in order to make the book attractive to readers who already had a copy of the poem in a journal issue. So why? They wanted to sell more to the people who bought it. So people who bought it, they're able to sell another volume, right? And the publishers who make money on it, or in it for money, they requested it. So this is evidence that it was primarily for marketing purposes, to sell to the existing owners more of this particular poetry, novel, or publication. Let's just check D. Correspondence between the poet and the publisher reveals that the poet's explanatory notes went through several drafts. Well, just because it went through many drafts does not mean it's there to sell more books. That's irrelevant. C is the right answer.